Well, don't you hate to come in the middle of a conversation? You know, you don't know what to say or anything. Well, that's kind of what's happening here today. This is kind of in the middle of a long incident that will happen with Jesus when he sends his disciples out. Now, chapter 10 records Jesus sending the disciples out, and they are his personal disciples. He's called them. Actually, not this reading today, but Matthew actually names the disciples. I won't name them because they're in there. You can read them. You can see who they are. We know most of them. There was one in there that was a little bit different, though, from the other Gospels. Now, Jesus will send his disciples out to what? To spread the good news of the kingdom that has come near. In other words, they're telling the story. Jesus has taught them, and now there is time for them to go out and spread the good news. Now, Jesus sometimes also calls his disciples apostles. Does anybody know what apostle means? Go ahead.
It's someone who actually knew Jesus personally and was there when Jesus had
Yep, and they were sent. It means send, and he would send them, and he would send them out and do things. So that's what the word means. Now, these 12, when they're sent out, don't go to spread the good news on their own strength. They don't try to carry a lot of baggage with them. Let's put it this way. No money, no bread, no food, no nothing. Basically, they're to go with the clothes on their back, and when they go to a town, if they go to some place and are welcomed in, then they will stay there. And they're not supposed to move around. In other words, be here this week, be there next week. No, they stay there where the first one invites them. And they will be empowered. He gives them great powers. They can cast out demons. They can raise the dead, cure the sick, and cleanse lepers. Beautiful, beautiful things to be able to do. I've often thought it would be nice if I could heal people. I can't heal people, and there's probably a good reason, probably because I would abuse it. So God knows best. But I see people, and there's one thing I can always do for them. I may not be able to heal them, but I always say a prayer for them. So Jesus instructs them, kind of strange here, but he is Jewish, that they are only to go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. In other words, fellow Jews. They aren't to go to the Gentile areas, no. But it's interesting later in his ministry that he ends up going to Gentile areas. And I take that credit with two women. And these two stories are some of my favorite stories in the Bible. First of all, we have the woman that has a sick daughter. She's possessed by a demon, and it's very bad on her. So she hears about Jesus being close. She goes, she comes, kneels, and says, Jesus, heal my daughter. And he looks at her, and he says, it is not right to give the bread for the Israelites to a dog. And that basically is calling her a dog. And you know, if that was to happen nowadays, somebody would pull a gun out and start shooting. They would get in a fight. but no, this lady, she accepts what Jesus says. She says, yes, Lord, I agree. But even the crumbs that fall from the master's table, the dogs eat. And I can just see a big smile coming on Jesus' face, and he thinks, you got me. He said, go, your daughter is healed. And she was. Now that's one story. And after that, he started opening up. You see, Jesus felt like maybe grace was only enough for Jews. But with people like this, he's learning to make that a much larger group. Jesus is at a well, one of Jacob's wells. The disciples have gone into town, and they're buying groceries, buying supplies for them. And he's leaned up against the well. Now, it's the middle of the day, and there's several reasons. There probably wasn't a tree there to lean up against, but it is possible that with the spring water down there, that those stones are cooler, and it was a way to cool him also. But he's there, and all of a sudden, a woman comes up to get water. And there's a lot of story into that. I'm not going to go into that. But she starts drawing water, and Jesus says, give me a drink of water. A decent male Jew would not ask a stranger for a drink of water, a woman. It would not happen. He would not ask for a drink of water because she touched that cup and it has become contaminated. It's not pure. So he couldn't do that either. And she reminds him, you, a Jew, why are you asking me of a drink of water? We don't do that. But he said, if you would have known the water I have, you would have asked for the water I have, and I would have given you water that you would never be thirsty again. Anyhow, so what about this lady? She goes, she has a long talk with Jesus. She goes, gets her town folks, come back, and everybody believes Jesus is the Messiah when the story is over. But it's Jesus being called to, I'm a Gentile, to other people, to not just the Jewish people. So, when Jesus sends his disciples out, as I mentioned, he's given them great power. That's the good news. Now the bad news. You are going to get thrown into court. People are going to beat you. Some of you will be killed. I mean, it was just gruesome. And you are to go on. He said, some of you will be hauled into court. He said, never worry about what to say when you're hauled into court, because I will give you words at that time. So God is still with him. Jesus is still with him. But a lot of bad things are going to happen to them. They have to give that up. They have to give that up and pick up their cross and follow Jesus. Jesus had a lot of trouble with the religious leaders, and they were very much against him. But he didn't quit. He kept going because he knew where it would end up. In Jerusalem, he would die for the sins of the world. So what does this mean in our lives today, going out? Well, sent. We must be willing to give up self and be willing to display Jesus, the light of Jesus Christ, as we travel the highways and byways wherever we are. Most of us will be around town during the week. We may travel a little bit further, but we are to display Jesus Christ there. I've heard it said and read it that we may be the only Christ people will ever see. So what do they see? Do they see angry people? Do they see hateful people? Do they see unforgiving people? What do they see? Now, when I go about the highways and byways during the week, I usually try to look especially for people doing good deeds. And my mind is in such a fix that I usually will forget, but I do try to. And I try to see where Christ is being actually visualized out in the world by other people. So as we travel the highways and byways, use every opportunity to look and see where Christ is being held up and share that love of Christ with other people. When I go out now, you listen to the news on Channel 3, and it's just disheartening. But go out in the world, look and see how many doors are open for people. Someone will open doors for folks. I think that's a sign of the love that Jesus has. So I was out, this was during the pandemic, a good example of this. I was out at Walmart. I was trying to buy, this was the toilet paper part of it. There was no toilet paper side, but I was buying some groceries, went and looked, and sure enough, there was none. So I was going around getting a few more things, and I come across someone that had a cart that had toilet paper in it. I said, well, where'd you get it? She said, well, normally I wouldn't say, but I'll tell you. The travel trailer section, now they're smaller rolls, but they're still toilet paper. So I went, and there were just piles of them. So I got 2 bundles and go to checkout. And when I going up that way, I just happened to meet some people, and we get to talking, and they're kind of right behind me in line. And I get up to the checkout lady, and she says, you can only buy one. She said, there's a sign there. I said, you only buy one. I said, okay, I'll take it back. So I went back. There was no sign there, but I went ahead and put the bundle of toilet paper there. And I coming back, I ran into these people again, and they were right behind me in line. And I checked out. She said, don't go anywhere. She said, let us check out, and then you can go, because I want to talk to you about something. So I checked out. They checked out. And in her basket, she had a bag, and she had one of those bundles of toilet paper, and she gave it to me. She would not accept a dime. She saw something there. She had something. She was showing the light of Christ to the world. And I have other stories like that, and you probably have stories like that too. But those kind of stories, on bad days, I try to remember the good things that happen. So it does help if you're having a bad day. And like I say, I have seen people nowadays that are courteous, that do show the love of Christ. Now this story could keep going, and there are you all have stories, I have stories. But the thing is that if we profess to following a God of love, and that is an agape type love, we should display this love as we go out into the community. Agape love. It is a self-sacrificial. You give up something for someone else. Jesus, when he was going around from village to village, and he'd be going along, and all of a sudden someone there on the side of the road would holler, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me, heal me. Well, Jesus didn't turn around and look at Peter and say, Pete, look at the watch. Are we on time? Can we spare any time of that? No. What did Jesus do? What would he do? He would stop and heal the person take care of their needs first and then go on. He knew where he was going. He knew he was going to Jerusalem, but that was at his appointed time, and only he knew it. So he could control that. So that's a great love, that when you give up your time for somebody else, best interest of others first. Now, this type of love, agape love, is this type of love. You have a neighbor, and your neighbor's dog keeps digging up your perennials every spring, and you just get tired of it. But an agape love said you love your neighbor anyhow, even though they don't take care of the dog. You love your neighbor anyhow. Now, there's a second type of love. There's actually about 6 types of love in the Old Testament. And some of them I probably couldn't even pronounce, but there's another love, filial love, brotherly love. We are to love each other, and it's different from giving up time and all, but we're just to love our neighbor as ourselves and all. But just think, there's a town, help me out here now, act like I don't know the answer to this. There's a town up the East Coast, and it's named after this word filio, up in the Northeast. Can anybody come up with that town? Philadelphia. And they actually use City of Brotherly Love, I believe, as their symbol, the words. So anyhow, so yeah. Now, I've about said all I'm going to say, but I'd like to give you a challenge this week as you go out into the world to look and see where Jesus is being presented in the world. You know, it's people acting like Jesus and how we're supposed to act. Brother Paul, in a letter to the Galatians, gave a very good description of the kind of love we are supposed to display. In Galatians 5, Brother Paul writes, the fruits of the Spirit, that's what he calls it, is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. If we go out and display that in the world, we are displaying the kind of love Christ expects us to. So think about this and look and see where you can act these things out, and other people are. Sometime next week you may want to talk to each other about it, what you've seen. But we aren't the only people in the world. There are other people in the world who definitely show the love of Christ out in the world. May it be so today and never and forever. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.